for different groups and accused his opponents of worshipping Satan and drug use through a method of hypnosis hidden through their TV reviews. That still only scratches the surface of what he is trying to hide through his pattern deletion of videos and a past he attempts to hand off. So who is Quantum TV? Why was he arrested, and what is he really hiding? For different groups, and accused his opponents of worshipping Satan
Quantum's
and drug
story,
use
at
through a
least as
method
far
of
back
hypnosis
as
hidden
he's
through their TV
Battlegrounds
reviews.
starts in
That
2009.
still only scratches
A
the
Twitter
surface
account
of
under
what
Ramil
Ramil X is made with bio that reads, quote, "Bio are for single people, bitch I'm married," unquote. This is a conflicting statement, as in trying to prove the solitary lifestyle of those that write bios, he himself has written one. Fitting that his stories start with a contradiction. Scrolling through his first replies, he attempts to get the attention of several record companies, and the replies reveal he is a guitarist and possibly a decent one by the songs he's playing. He also links to his MySpace that has a single song, though as the platform has deteriorated, the song is unplayable. There also exists a YouTube channel that goes by Cataclysm Clamor, also made in 2009. Within was a single video of Quantum and his band attending a battle of the bands. The crew thumbnail shows Quantum on guitar. The interesting bit is Quantum both disavows prior channels and even this Twitter. Yet this Battle of the Bands video, if clicked on through the link, shows that it was claimed by Quantum TV for copyright. In an attempt to disprove and hide his past, he only gives it legitimacy. Additionally, it shows that Quantum lacks access to his older social media accounts, as it would have been less telling if the video or the channel itself was deactivated. And then after 2009, nothing. Until 4 years later on June 30th, 2013, Ramil X tweeted, "Finally back from the military, expect new music soon," followed by its last tweet, "Beautiful Florida weather." What happened was Quantum signed up for the Marines. Then he was honorably discharged a few months after joining due to degenerative nerve damage, and so he was on to his next venture. In sync with his last tweet, he made a new channel within 2 days of posting it, under the name Quantum Apotheosis. Quantum has few definitions. To most, the word is just known by the complexity around its proper usage. Apotheosis, however, is quite different and telling of Quantum. It can be defined as the highest point in development of something, culmination or climax. There are two ways to view this. One is how he may view it in defining himself as especially skilled. The peak may be in reference to others as he sits upon the top and towers others with his status, ability, or knowledge. The other interpretation is more sad but realistically applicable, in that Quantum Apotheosis, as we're about to find out, is the best version of themselves, with his peak of competence being the majority's trough, and will be unable to improve through his status, ability, or knowledge. Unfortunately, the channel Quantum Apotheosis has wiped their catalog from 2014 to mid-2022. In place, his new Quantum Apotheos Twitter launched close to his channel of a similar name, and other surviving interactions with him will fill in the blanks. From 2014 through 2017, on his Twitter, the majority of early tweets are directed at the developers of a wrestling and Naruto video game. And then in 2017, the tweets shift heavily, and only focus on supporting the US president, before then again tweeting at game developers, stating that their games are all trash and unplayable. Notice how none of these tweets play into the purpose of his Twitter. As per the bio, he reveals he is a photographer. This is all extremely light compared to what comes next.
Quantum Apotheosis. He is about television's tech channel.
I just wanted to just let you know, especially Quantum, because he called me out on it. And some apparent reason, he has some kind of problem with me. I don't know what it is.
This guy, Quantum Apotheosis, still haven't learned his lesson, you know, and he's still with the old antics. But I'm personally glad that his channel, because he was lying about a lot of stuff, man. I mean, lying about the TVs he had.
Those channels discussing Quantum were Mr. 4K, Sprite Ent, and Westside Tech respectively, with videos released in either March of 2018 or April 2018. They are also all relatively small tech review channels. While Mr. 4K was shouting out Quantum, Sprite Ent was confused as to why he was getting targeted by Quantum, and Westside Tech was happily partaking in attacks back to Quantum. Mr. 4K's video in particular reveals that Quantum had 13,000 subscribers and had now moved on to reviewing televisions and even uploading movie clips, as per his uploading of a scene from Wreck-It Ralph 2 reveals.
More pancakes!
Let's speed it up! Pancake, 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 pancake. Eat, little buddy! Eat!
Ralph, you might want to try feeding the kitty for a little while.
No! The kitty gets the milkshake. The bunny gets the pancake.
That movie clip is also the second most popular video on his channel. Its description reads, Hashtag quantum apotheosis, the bunny gets a pancake will likely be the next big meme. Enjoy the funniest clip of the year from the first person with the bunny gets the pancake scene ready to go for all. The rest of the description is inaccessible. It's hard to say why Quantum began reviewing televisions. But then again, his interest and prior experiences do range widely, as do the people he was attacking through his videos and now tweets through his third, newly made Twitter, QuantumTV_YT, made in June 2018. The same month, The Last of Us Part 2 was coming out, as well as building controversy before its release. Quantum tells the director of the game to keep their sexuality to themselves underneath one of their tweets. Quantum is also seen attacking a user that promoted the game and the game studio directly. What would really later draw interest is this post of two women dancing in a behind the scenes of Last of Us Part 2, where in response, Quantum tweets, quote, You have LGBT kissing in church, but we're bigots for rejecting this hateful content? Ugh, why aren't you Pulse victims? SMH, the world would be a better place without you. Hashtag boycott, hashtag the LGBT of us. Unquote. Quantum is referencing a tragedy where 49 people were killed and 53 others were wounded at Pulse, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. A user then questions Quantum's sanity.
Of like a Deadpool, like kind of like animated, like kind of like laughing at her.
Yeah.
And it just has her name, and then it has our full address on it. I started getting messages from a user called Controller Corpse. So Controller CORPS, which happens to be Quantum's TikTok username, which now I think says something else. I forget what it is.
And he's everywhere.
And yeah. And it basically had, it was just like saying hi with my real name and address. And then she started getting text messages, and her family members started getting text messages with those same pictures and their addresses. In my mind, I go, okay, there's two scenarios here. Either it is him directly, or it could be something like one of his mods, or it could be like a super fan. You know, somehow some super fan was, you know, threatening me and doing all this other stuff on his behalf. Later in the week, I was getting calls from, you know, from my actual girlfriend, and I would get them every 30 seconds. And her phone, she wasn't calling me. It was a spoof number to the point where it was just keeping my phone locked up, so I wasn't able to take calls for like calibrations.
Right.
I ended up having to block these phone numbers just so my phone would be untied. Like, that's the kind of stuff I dealt with. What you want to do is file what's called like an IC.
This channel, as the name implies, was a sketch-based channel with Gerard and a friend playing Stone and Ari respectively. Stone was the foolish, happy-go-lucky character, and Ari was a prude that sought to bring order to his friend's chaos. While much of the comedy is bland and this trope has long been utilized to much greater effect, this series captures the looseness of a 2009 YouTube.
He's right there. You found Osama. He's right there.
Hello, sirs. Would you like some homemade lemonade?
Why, yes. We would like to try your product.
Could we please have a sample of your product and your phone numbers?
I'm 12.
Not off limits to me!
This series was a flop, another unsuccessful channel that, to Gerard, warranted the creation of a new channel. One that wouldn't be so pigeonholed, and one that would be set up not only to host his content on YouTube, but to also try to promote his website, thatonevideo.com. Unfortunately, this was never archived to the Wayback Machine when active. However, his YouTube channel was, but only the channel page. The majority of videos here are missing, but are clearly themed around a show satirically emphasizing masculinity with videos such as How to Torture a Thief Like a Man, Man-to-Man Time with a Man, Episode 2, How to Cook Steak Like a Man, Now You're a Man. In the sea of lost media, one episode, specifically Episode 5 of the Now You're a Man cooking show, survived.
Once people start realizing that we puppets are strong too, then
There will never be a puppet president! Now, don't cross the meats.
This around 7-minute long video provides a blueprint for the rest of the series. It was not entirely a cooking show and leaned more into sketch comedy, with episodes adopting different themes. The effort applied was perhaps misplaced, considering the custom-made puppets and the names on the credits is how a charity exposed a fraud.
And I just know, because of my track record of things like G4 exploding, me being friends with John Tron when he was a racist, I've been a part of pro Jared. Like, pulling one thread about the charity thing is going to upheave my entire life in a way that scares the living crap out of me.
It is November of 2023. Carl Jobst, a content creator who typically covers video game speedrunners and their falsified runs, received an anonymous tip. This person alleges that the Open Hand Foundation, the charity run by the Khalil family that Gerard raises money for every year, has not donated a single cent. This is a very bold accusation, especially since Gerard has stated in the past exactly how the money is being used.
We are raising money for dementia research and treatment, more specifically helping families and those loved ones who've been affected by early onset dementia and who are learning how their lives are going to be changing forever. Raising money for dementia research. We're trying to help those who are affected by Alzheimer's, all types of dementia, and beyond. Specifically, families who have just found out that a loved one has dementia. Essentially, we're raising money for dementia research and prevention, specifically for families who just found out that a loved one of theirs has been affected by dementia.
Gerard stated 3 different areas the money was going towards. It was going to research, preservation, to those affected. Gerard also took the bold leap of stating exactly where the money was going.
Currently working with the University of San Francisco, and we're kind of one of their main funding support partners going into all of this.
Main funding partner, support partner. This is a very strong statement. Luckily, charities like Gerard's need to file what is called a 990-PF. These files are made publicly available and can be found on the IRS website. Better yet, they can also be found through ProPublica, which gets the documents out there faster. It is here that you can find the most recent 990-PF from 2022. ProPublica also has a very user-friendly interface that charts revenue, expenses, and total assets. Immediately, it is apparent that the revenue is matching the total assets, and the total assets keep rising, which means none of the money has been donated. But then again, third-party website-generated charts are not always the most reliable. Checking the actual 990-PFs show that for 2022, the gross revenue was $170,000. The net was $106,000. This was added to the pile, which at the end of the year was, quote, cash non-interest bearing $655,520, unquote. Looking further down, the foundation truly did not donate a single cent. It was just sitting there. To make matters worse, it was not even being invested. This means on top of the money not being donated, it was actually losing value over the years as it was sitting in a bank account not moving. In disbelief, Carl Jobst emailed the Open Hand Foundation. What he got back was an email from Jacques Khalil, a board member and brother of Gerard. Here he stated that, quote, we have been evaluating potential beneficiaries who align with our vision. Entities that could use our funds efficiently and effectively without a substantial portion being diverted to administrative expenses, unquote. So it is again confirmed that the Open Hand Foundation, since its establishment in 2014, has not made a donation. Jock also details that they donated body parts, alluding to donating their mother's body to help with research. And likely through the PBD West Golf Tournament, they donated money before they were an official charity. Though insufficient progress was being made, so they were deciding to vet charities, hence the lack of a donation. Closing the response was 2 ill-conceived notions. Firstly was that Jock was stating that there are no irregularities or misuse of funds because the Department of Justice would intervene and that their financial activities are quote-unquote transparent. This is true to an extent. While the expenses are listed on the 990-PFs, they are not itemized and or described very poorly and inconsistently. For example, on the 2022 filings, the major 2 expenses are golf fundraiser expenses and fundraising. What does fundraising allude to? Is that Indieland or is that a separate event? What about the 2021 filings? Well, these are even less clear, as even though more was spent in expenses this year, there are only 2 categories, dues and subscriptions and the blanket expenses. And in 2020, the expenses are only described as expenses. To the original point, this is not highly transparent, nor does being a 501c3 make one immune to deception or mismanagement. The second notion that closed the email was Jock asking Carl if he knew of any good charities the foundation could donate to. This is a rather strange question, especially considering that the foundation documents demonstrate that every member of the board was responsible for seeking a charity to donate to. And to ask Carl Jobst is to insinuate that though they should have conducted hours upon hours of research, they could have somehow missed a charity for their very specific cause. This response only brought on more questions. Primarily, Carl asked about Gerard's statements that they were partnered with the UCSF, when in fact the Open Hand Foundation had still not donated anything, and on the Open Hand's website they were listed as a benefactor. The following email that Carl received was one of a far different tone. No dear Carl, and no warm regards.
Who knows what secrets we'll uncover?
Ha ha! I love catching some waves. The tavern was bustling from dawn to dusk. They lived happily forever after. What they lacked in size, they made up for in bravery.
Chart the course!
The victorious hero seemed undefeatable. Only in defeat would the hero understand the value of victory.
You'll only drown in your hate.
And I'll catch you next!
Clear your mind.
Line him up and knock him down. Where's the fight?
crystals speak to me.
The victorious hero seemed undefeatable.
The email opens with, quote, UCSF is acknowledged on our website. The creator, Game Dude, real name Alexander Batter, is evoked mockingly as an example of an angry reviewer, a subgenre of game reviewers.
I'm not one to do the whole retro review thing, because, you know, it's a bit overdone on the internet. But, you know,
I sound like Game Dude over here. Why do they all look the same? That's the thing about the Game Dude, though. He is the Game Dude, and he is so rude. And he is a gamer with a bad attitude.
When conversation around Alexander arises, there will be comments incorrectly stating, speculating, or exaggerating his history. The only sources ever provided, if even that, are videos of him rambling on a beach, and chiefly noted is a 2-hour-long video of Game Dude telling a story through toys, primarily plastic dinosaurs. The rest of the statements surrounding Game Dude are mental illness takes shape in many forms, and typically a doctor of some type is sought out for assistance. But rarely is the doctor the form of the illness. When news stations cover Malachi Alexander Love Robinson, the coverage falls into discussing his newest instance of impersonation. The comments form the narrative of ill-placed motivation, though hope to see him succeed. Yet both fail to capture the complete story and see the true perverse intentions of the 18-year-old quote-unquote doctor that masked his intentions with cures. His targets were even laid clearly on his website. His mistakes, more obvious in hindsight, make him more fool than genius. But unlike his talent, the crimes, mostly falling under theft and impersonation, were very real. So who is Dr. Love Robinson? How did he manage so many instances of impersonation, and where is he now? In 2014, in West Palm Beach, Florida, at the age of 16, Love Robinson went to various high schools, according to the Palm Beach Post. Not as a student, because he was allegedly homeschooled, but he went to them requesting to be hired as part of a nursing program. Additionally, an email by the quote-unquote parents of Love Robinson was sent as an apology to one of the high schools where he was escorted off. It details that Love Robinson was being homeschooled, but did have legitimate degrees that could be provided for inspection. He even went to the school's district headquarters to ask for a job, where investigators were then called and he was picked up by his grandparents. He was then referred to an undisclosed hospital to be treated for an underlying mental illness. Fast forward a year later, Love Robinson was actually at a medical center, and went there by choice. Though that happened to be St. Mary's, a medical center that does quite a bit, but is primarily known for treating pregnant women and delivering babies. To roam its halls, one will need to look the part of its clientele or an employee. The former being more difficult, Love Robinson donned a lab coat. On one side reads St. Mary's Medical Center, Tenet, South Florida. On the other, just plain anesthesiology. Another important piece was a stethoscope which he wore around the neck. So him, with these two items equipped, we introduced Dr. Love, who roamed the halls not for a week, but for a month. Malachi was shadowing doctors, looking at procedures, and his status was uncontested.
Have you had training?
I have shadowed many doctors.
You're saying your training comprises shadowing other doctors. That's your training in medicine.
Your training comprises of a lot of things.
Until he was found in a pregnant patient's room and escorted off the property. Investigators found that lab coat, but probably because of his young age and that he didn't really interact with any of the patients, the hospital didn't sue. And the police determined no crime had been committed. And maybe that was the right choice, because after this, Malachi went to New Directions LLC. According to its Facebook, it's a brain-based treatment facility committed to helping people who suffer from ADDI, likely reaching the text limit they meant to type addiction. And on their website, they treat much more than that. In their private practices, they are claimed to treat virtually anything, maybe even whatever is wrong with Malachi. And like the testimonials of patients that can be found on their social medias, they have a neat picture of Malachi in a suit on their website. Except that is found in the category of staff members. The only way we know what Malachi was doing at the center was because of a cease and desist that was sent to him that uncovers that he was at the center practicing massage therapy for several months, until he was uncovered as a fraud. During this time, he was also routinely showing up to banks to conduct business or cash in his checks while in costume. On several occasions, he tried to open up a business account with them, but never showed up to any of the appointments. After he was sent the cease and desist, he was let go from his job, and as for New Directions, it dissolved sometime after. The thing about Love Robinson is he is clearly getting better in his deception and learning how to work people and his way up to higher positions, and he was suffering little consequence, largely because of his age, which in turn made the deception all the more juicy, because as his age was protecting him, it was also making these positions people believed he was in more impressive, and patients likely believed he was a teen genius. It also helped that he presented a degree from Arizona University that presents him as a naturopathic doctor that, opposed to modern treatments, treats patients with pseudoscientific, non-invasive methods like massage therapy and herbs. He also has a doctorate that he, for a while, refused to reveal its origin.
2 colleges. Which ones? I'm not comfortable disclosing their names.
This is where Perseus Wells comes in, a man that Malachi met through Wells' job of selling cell phones, and Malachi to Perseus was selling the idea of starting a clinic together. Perseus didn't have any degrees or qualifications to practice medicine.
I wanted to ask him, come clean, is this true?
But he did have $10,000 and was to help finance the opening of the clinic, where Malachi claims he put $3,000 of his own money that he earned from his time at New Directions. He even told Perseus that he wasn't an MD or medical doctor, but he was an ND or naturopathic doctor. What Wells likely didn't know is that Florida no longer licenses NDs. That is really only the surface of what he didn't know. As for Malachi, he was proudly promoting his new clinic that on December 11, 2015, he posted on Facebook that he started working at New Birth, New Life, Holistic and Alternative Medical Center and Urgent Care, as owner, but more importantly, physician. Malachi also fed this information to other websites that promoted the idea that Love Robinson was Dr. Love. But what about Love Robinson's own website? That website looked quite professional, with categories that cover staff, contact information, an About Us page, and services that encompass type your paragraph here. While this is all very impressive, few things prove legitimacy more than a testimonial. That is found on the front page by a Bettina. This testimonial is from a person living in Phoenix, Arizona, and Dr. Love's clinic is in Florida. Not only that, but he helped their family through infant, toddler, and teenage years, though his practice just opened. Reverse searching the images of the doctors on Dr. Love's website reveals that his website is actually a ripoff of Northwood Medical Associates PC that has the exact same layout and predates Malachi's own practice by at least several years.
Are they doctors from your clinic?
No, those are stock photos that came with the
Do you
website.
think that's misleading?
No.
They are based in Flagstaff, which is the same state as Malachi's single testimonial. On Malachi's website, some changes were made to fit Malachi's practice. Like staff, where 2 women were hired to boast legitimacy, a program director and an operations director. As for Malachi, he was describing himself as a well-rounded professional that uses air, water, light, heat, earth, and various other items to promote natural healing like natural processed foods. Attached to his title was PhD, the title obtained through an undisclosed source. Additionally, there was HHPC and AAMA. Those 2 acronyms can be interchanged for whatever you please. As for the website, there are other changes made that have disturbing connotation. Like on the homepage, that unlike the services page actually describes what Malachi was wanting to treat. This includes child exams, woman examinations, annual physicals, sport and camp physicals, adult and pediatric immunizations, preventative health care preoperative clearance. Some of these are questionable at best, but woman examinations in particular consist of a pap smear, a pelvic exam, and a breast exam. Considering that he was previously a massage therapist that encompasses human contact, and that St. Mary's, where he pretended to be a doctor for a month, focuses on women's health care, the crimes Malachi is aiming for are far worse than impersonation of a doctor. But at least this time, his history was catching up to him. Crime Stoppers on January 13, 2016 received a call from a person that is left anonymous. But the information provided in the report is so specific, the possibility of it being a family member cannot be thrown out. In the report, the caller informs Crime Stoppers that Malachi is also advertising himself as a 25-year-old. The caller also claims that Malachi forged 2 items, a medical degree and a certificate from the Palm Beach Health Department. Those are likely found in Malachi's clinic that is opening up. But the most important bit is that allegedly Malachi has been Baker acted twice. The last time was after the incident at St. Mary's. What this is, and allows in Florida, is the detention typically for examination for a person that shows himself to be possibly unwell, and can be held up for 72 hours. And so the investigation begins. With Malachi's history and the accuracy of the call tipping off the Department of Health, evidence and information is being screenshotted and captured. There was an urgency to this because Malachi in his practice was receiving patients, and who knows how they would be affected by his con. Luckily, Malachi made this very easy for investigators. On his Facebook, his position as physician is double underlined. The entirety of his LiveScript page is screenshotted. SCNM, the college Malachi claims to have a naturopathic degree from, is contacted and verifies that they have no recordings of him attending. The American Association of Drugless Practitioners is also contacted because they certified him, but that was also quickly voided. This is quite literal because the pages on the report are so dark. But they weren't the only ones aware of Malachi's history. An investigative reporter from a local news station was tipped off by a family member concerned about Malachi's actions, and did so in fear that he would hurt someone through malpractice. So she showed up to his clinic and found him wearing a lab coat that he quickly changed out of before providing a tour and possibly hid anything that could pin him as impersonating a doctor, like this taped-over MD on his list of titles that the reporter found. His excuse was that was a mistake by the building's management, which when contacted refused Malachi's claim. As for his certifications, when prompted about the colleges, he does surprisingly provide a bit of information.
I've done a lot of, Christian training and, theology and science, and, I have done some alternative medicine courses and things of that nature, which I have been certified by 2 boards to do.
You gone to college, Malachi?
I have, yes.
Which college did you go to?
I've gone to 2 colleges.
Which ones?
I'm not comfortable with disclosing their names.
Did you graduate?
Yes, I did.
It's also interesting that he chose the American Association of Drugless Practitioners to be certified by, because their own legitimacy is akin to that of Malachi's, with certification fees costing nearly $300. But that isn't the only website Malachi visited to get his credentials. Investigators also found the source of one PhD, and is the source of his claim to be called doctor, but not medical doctor. The PhD is from another sham service. Pay $29.95 and you can get a Doctor of Divinity title, where the site claims that you, quote, will legally be entitled to use the title doctor in front of your name, and DD after your name, unquote. This is purchased from Universal Life Church Seminary, and in the least, this will allow him to contact his patients after he kills them through negligence. Well, he might have if it weren't for the investigations and his willingness to do so many interviews with WPBF. He even requested them.
A surprising call. He wanted to talk again.
As for the Sheriff's Office investigation of Love Robinson, they've had for a while a tidy list of sources online that portray Love Robinson as a doctor. There are clients that receive treatment, which is a big no-no for the unlicensed. And they took it a step further. A sting was set up on February 16, 2016, and began around 12 p.m. An undercover female officer stepped in requesting an examination. She filled out a questionnaire, then returned it. Then, a while later, Love Robinson asked her to follow him into a room. What followed was typical of any examination a doctor would give you. He checked her weight, blood pressure, asked about symptoms, and the works. Things get a bit weird when he checked her heart rate on the upper chest, but made it a point to move back and forth several times. After the examination, Love Robinson told the officer that she was fine, and gave the medical advice, which is very important, to get over-the-counter medication for allergies. Additionally, he told the officer that he suffers from lupus and kidney cancer, in which he treats himself. While in the exam room, she gave the signal for the agents to come in and arrest him for practicing medicine without a license thanks to that medical advice he gave. A cease and desist was also provided the same day of the arrest to stop practicing medicine until he is licensed. But Dr. Love was caught, and this time he wouldn't get away so easily, because his story spread far beyond the local Florida news and was even on Good Morning America, and where he walked out of the interview because of how directly, though accurately, they accused him of being a fraud.
Are you a fraud?
I don't appreciate your tone.
Dr. Love even held a press conference that he was journeyed to by his grandfather, who also posted bond that was $21,000.
I just want to say that I am deeply saddened and a little disrespected by some of the things that have come forth. But I will say that my attorneys are working hard. They're working around the clock to make sure that this issue gets resolved in the best way possible.
Normally, when such information is provided, you'd have your attorney next to you. But because there was none present, it was almost expected for him to reveal he is a lawyer as well. That was the general attitude, and even the county sheriff's Twitter was making fun of him, alongside the rest of the US that were being exposed to this story. Few affected more than an 86-year-old former patient of Dr. Love that suffered from severe stomach pain that her gastroenterologist could not remedy.
Paying him nearly $3,500.
She filed the complaint a month prior, but she first made contact with Dr. Love 3 months prior in December 2015. It was then that Dr. Love agreed to help and examined her lungs and legs. This prompted him to diagnose her with arthritis and attempted to treat it with natural vitamins. He also guaranteed some tests, but she would have to pay in advance, and she did for 5 visits that in all totaled $3,494. Also, these tests never came. That's still hardly the worst part. On one visit, the pain was so bad he called an ambulance, but convinced her to leave her purse and personal belongings with him to leave at the house and lock up. That's when he stole an additional $2,794 from 3 personal checks. An important thing to understand is that much of this was being covered and revealed to the public mid-February. Cases like this attract attention and lawyers who are more willing to defend someone because if they do a good job, it's definitely something they'll be remembered for. Enter Andrew Stein, Malachi's lawyer, that started to sit in with him during interviews. He even said this.
He has the entrepreneurial spirit of somebody like a Donald Trump or a Bill Gates. I've never met somebody, and I'm much older obviously, who has such entrepreneurial spirit.
His lawyer was so confident in his ability, he wrote a blog about how he was going to defend him on his website, with confident lines such as, quote, Malachi Love Robinson denies all criminal charges against him and explained that he owned the facility and never practiced medicine in any way, shape, or form, unquote. His strategy also seemed to want to put his race into play, and was also going to argue that Malachi, in his white lab coat, stethoscope, and with his entire procedure with the officer, was not offering medical advice posing as a doctor, but was just giving general advice as to what Malachi would do if he was her. And expectedly, at the end of the article, he advertises his own services. This may have been a formidable strategy, if it weren't for the 86-year-old woman he scammed that was being added to the charges. And now, at the start of March, police found the following video featured at the age of 16, where Bam was being harped on by a school counselor to focus on his education, and tried to convince Bam that skating was a fad. After all, the industry had seen a major decline in the past years. But at this point, Bam knew best, and now instead of just skipping school, which was allowed by his parents, he dropped out entirely and got sponsored by Nike, where he received life-changing money via a contract that guaranteed $5,000 a month to wear their shoes. Shoes that were so terribly designed for skating that he often wore competing brands with a Nike sticker glued on. There was likely a breach of contract somewhere along the line, but Bam had a specific talent of pushing boundaries just as far as they would benefit him. By this point, he was already well acquainted with various professional skateboarders who were often much older than Bam. The Margera family, unilaterally working towards Bam's skating career, was paying off massively, and other families criticizing the Margeras for raising Bam without discipline and allowing him to form his own were eating their words. As for his friend, Brandon Novak, he was also seeing success. He was the first skater to be endorsed by Gatorade and was touring with none other than Tony Hawk. But at 17, Novak, experimenting with substances, got addicted to H, where after consistent use got kicked from the team to attend his first rehab at the same age. This was to be the first of many rehabs to come. As for Bam, when he heard of Novak's addiction, Bam didn't even know what age was. In fact, even though Bam toured with much older skaters who often drink, Bam himself was opposed to even consuming alcohol, and looked down on those that did. Besides, Bam didn't need alcohol to be chaotic because he was the embodiment of it, as demonstrated by the videos he would record with his friends like Ryan Dunn, who showed similar recklessness.
Ryan Dunn would pull up in some new haggard hunk of shit car that he got because he just wrecked his last one. You know, he was getting in accidents like it was no fucking tomorrow.
As for videos with sponsorships, those often boiled down to limited chaos mixed in with skating, like with Toy Machine, a habit that had evolved from his skating video making days for Fairman's just a few years prior. Now something bigger was in the works. Bam knew he was onto something when his videos were entertaining his uncles that had little interest in the sport. And around the mid-90s, Bam was already a big success. He bought his parents a new car and a house with the money he was earning. Also, a part of that, Bam was taking note of how he was out-earning adults with his craft, citing how unique in a position he was to be in, out-earning even his girlfriend's parents. As in 1999, Bam compiled the previous years of chaos selectively. This compilation of stunts and skating was to be known as CKY, which is also the name of Jess Margera's, Bam's older brother's, band. A fitting name considering the full name of the band is Camp Kill Yourself. The video itself was released in 1999 under Landspeed CKY. Landspeed is a skating company that is owned by Tom Yeto and distributed the VHS tapes to skating shops throughout the US. Landspeed was on the brink of collapse, which is also what prompted Bam to make the video. And without any advertisement at all and entirely through word of mouth, CKY gained widespread success, selling nearly 1 million copies throughout the entirety of its run. Boiling the video down to skating and sometimes scripted stunts would be a disservice to it. It was Bam's selection music, strange cuts, and experimental edits that translated Bam's passion for his work as much as it promoted Bam's culture and raw lifestyle. Financially, it showed that there was a much older audience that wanted these types of videos, because most skating videos at the time were marketed and presented in a safe way as to appeal to parents that would buy them for their children. CKY wasn't the only one challenging and changing this culture. There was also Big Brother, not the television series, but an unrelated magazine that far predates it. Big Brother was a magazine that started in the 80s and gained prominence in the 90s as a counter to the safe image of skating and was doing well to make a name for itself. That besides its raunchy nature, it had an artistic appeal, where throughout the inherent style of Anything Goes, it allowed the magazine a broad range of experimental covers and articles. And